Hi, I'm Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the podcast host of Invest in Her and an award winning producer, author, and TEDx speaker. Our show, Invest in Her, features phenomenal female founders and funders. As you know, women receive less than 2% of venture capital funding. Our series is about accelerating the funding of women by connecting them to funding resources. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to this week's episode of Invest in Her. I'm your host, Catherine Gray, founder of She Angel Investors and co-founder of the She Angels Foundation. I'm also the general partner over at Silicon Valley Women Founders Fund and the executive producer of Show Her the Money movie. And today, as always, every week we have on an exciting guest who is just an icon in this arena. And today is no different. I have on today with us Syama Bunten, and she is the principal and co-founder of Big Delta Capital. Let's give her a warm welcome. How you doing, Syama?
I'm doing all right, Catherine. I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks. And thanks for all the great work that you're doing in this arena. We're going to talk about that today. I just want to kick off starting that some accolades. So I saw that Titan Business Award, the Women in Wealth Entrepreneur, you were Investor of the Year. That's really
Yeah,
cool.
thank
And
you.
how did that come about? And tell me how and why you started Big Delta Capital.
Yeah, what's so interesting, Catherine, is the origin of my work in this space and investing actually was precipitated by a divorce, which
Oh,
is
wow.
typically not everyone's entry point.
Everybody thinks that divorce is a bad thing, but sometimes
Good
there's a
thing.
silver lining.
That is right. And what it opened up for me was sort of this need and craving to understand how I could make impact with my capital. And I had been a founder at the time of another company and was like, oh my gosh, what can I do with my money that is really going to move the needle for myself and for the world that I live in? And so that is what really got me down the road of looking at angel investing, being an LP in funds, and then subsequently starting to move my energy towards how do we get more women to start to activate their capital. So I went from a personal journey to then holding up my torch and saying, all right, guys, it is time to start to move the needle here. So what I think makes Big Delta really unique is not only investing, which is something a lot of us do now, especially those who are listening to the show, but also our pillars around education, network, and opportunities for women to start to feel more confident to be able to exercise their capital. So it's both on the community building side, on the education side, and then certainly wanting to put our own capital behind the people, businesses, and ideas that we believe in.
Totally. And, I see that you've done a minimum of 25 startup investments. That's really incredible because that makes you a great example to other women that this is something they need to be looking into. Angel investing, venture capital investing, all of these things that determine what will be the future products and services. And we should have a say so in that, right? And so I appreciate that you're leading the way by doing, best to be an example by actually doing what you say other people should be doing. There is such a groundswell of women like yourself that are creating communities, are creating education, are creating platforms to perpetuate generational wealth for women, right? And I just love that you're part of that ecosystem because we couldn't have enough people carrying that flag.
It's so interesting. I was talking to a young woman the other day and she said, "Well, Shauna, you have a podcast. I don't know if I should start one." And I said, "We need so many voices to be able to share the message in our
Yes.
own unique ways. And often, as we know from at least my world in marketing and building businesses, it takes us about 7 to 10 times to hear something in order to really understand how it moves the needle. And so, Catherine, it could be someone hearing you say it, then hearing me say it, then hearing someone else say it, and then finally the fourth person says it, and they're like, oh, yeah, I can do this, and this lands. And so I believe that we are all here today as market makers, right? We're trying to create the market, and that means we need lots of different voices, lots of experience sharing. So I really believe that it's like breaking down the silos and getting real and raw. And through that, I think women will then see themselves in each other. And that is the goal that I have. We can find ourselves in each other and go, oh, I resonate with that message and that voice. And then maybe 2 years from now, I resonate with a different message because life is changing.
And I love that you come from the experience of being an operator yourself. I think some of the best investors are people that have been there, done that, so they understand what you're going through. They understand the challenges. And there's nothing better than an investor who's also a mentor and can help people actually navigate that entrepreneurial path, which is not an easy one. So I love that you have that successful background. I read here that you helped build like the Gucci outlets from 50 million to over 100 million in 2 years. Like that's incredible. And that you could take that experience and help other people that you're investing in or that you meet with their own growth and scaling, right?
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. I call my first wave of being an entrepreneur, like, first level entrepreneurialism, which is let me take skill sets and things that I've learned in my corporate life and really extract that and build that and create businesses out of that. And then with what we're building with Big Delta, it's really, I call it second wave entrepreneurialism, which is this is a much bigger calling. And, Big Delta is co-founded by my husband and I. So I had a divorce and then I got remarried. And so what's exciting about that is he's
I
also an
take it, wait a minute, I
entrepreneur.
take it Big Delta's with the new husband.
Yes, with
Yeah,
the
okay,
new
good.
with the new husband. And John and I met each other through the entrepreneurs organization. So two entrepreneurs coming together to say we want to create something really big and powerful in the world that really moves the needle for women. And so this is, second wave entrepreneurialism, which is there's not a real roadmap, but there's like a real calling for change in the world, and we feel really called to be able to do that work. So it's
How wonderful
terrifying
you
because it's
met
not as a
somebody.
roadmap.
How wonderful that you met somebody that is aligned with your thinking of investing in these overlooked communities, women, BIPOC, LGBTQ, right? That men are getting that, I mean, I have many men come to our film and say, we didn't know that women only were getting 2%. Like, how can we help fix that? Right. So you found yourself a good one. He's a keeper.
He
Yeah.
certainly is. The second one's the best one.
So Big Delta Capital, tell me a little bit about it. When did you start it? What's the focus?
Yeah. So, for us, outside of our own sort of private investments that we're making, for us, we're really focused on bringing more women into the conversation of building their financial activity. And the way that we really define that is we need to be able to know that there's something more out there than a 401k and buying a house when it
Right.
comes to what we can do with our money. And even still, with our 401k, we can choose to allocate those resources in values aligned ETFs like WCEO or some of the others that are out there. And so we're quite motivated by the $30 trillion wealth transfer, the fact that only 28% of women feel confident with their capital. And so what we've done is, last year I launched a podcast called Getting Rich Together. It's one
Yes,
of
I
our
was going to bring that
properties.
up. Yeah.
Yes, it's one of our properties. We're coming up with this conference series. And so for us, it's okay, we're going to continue to do our private investments that are going to help move the needle for what we believe are going to be the companies that are going to change the world or be on the stock market in the next 20 years, right? Like, what can we do in that capacity? But then to bring others with us, what I've realized is from the last 5 years of having hundreds of conversations with women, money is so personal, and unless we can really understand our own abilities for risk tolerance or what our values are, how do we know what to do with our money when? And so, a big part of it for us in this ethos around bringing women together to invest is to really help everyone understand that they are all wisdom keepers as well as being able to be teachers, right? There's something that we've all figured out that we get to have the opportunity to share.
I love that. Well, I do think women have been kept from really learning about alternative investing. And it has been a mission of ours with our movie, Show Her the Money, which, I think, we took on a 100-city tour around the world. trying to, in an engaging, entertaining, storytelling way, help women understand, well, what is venture capital? Why is it so important to our future? And why should we be investing in it? And it is the reason that women get so little funding. It's because there was no women at the table deciding who was going to get the funding. We have to be the ones deciding who gets the funding. Women and men who support women have to be the decision makers in that arena. So I love seeing things like Big Delta Capital come along that's supporting that vision. And we do have to educate people on all the various types of investments outside of maybe what their wealth advisors saying. Like you're saying, everything from public stocks to bonds, real estate. But there's other types of investing that the billionaires do. And guess what? You could be doing it too. And that's, I think, where we're aligned in how do we educate people about that? Because we want to create generational wealth for women. So I love that you do the Getting Rich Together podcast. Tell us about that podcast. Who do you have on? What do you talk about? Let's talk about getting rich together.
Yeah, what's interesting for me is I realized that through my own sort of closing the gaps on my own personal finance and realizing what was capable with me and my capital, I realized what I was looking for were wealth expanders. I was looking for women who wouldn't tell me what to do with their money, but who would tell me what they're doing with their money. And that also a lot of what we do with our money comes from very young money stories of when we were little. And so many of the women on the show have different backgrounds. For me, it doesn't matter if you've inherited your wealth, if you married into it, if you're an exited entrepreneur or a corporate powerhouse or whatever it is that you are. It's really highlighting the breadth of diversity of storytelling from, Catherine, what was it like when you were a little girl, and like, what did your parents do? And how did you see the world? All the
Yeah.
way through to thinking about legacy planning. And so the podcast has done quite well in such a very short period of time. We're coming up against our 1 year anniversary in about 6 days. So the end of April. We've got about 1,000 5 stars on Spotify. The podcast won 2 awards last year. And it's really becoming a place where I believe women can see themselves. You might hear of a story where a woman didn't start investing until she was in her 40s, or another story where someone was, doing arbitrage, selling flowers on the side of a road at like 10 years old, trying to start their first hustle. So,
Yeah.
the breadth of stories allow us to say to ourselves, okay, I'm not ahead, I'm not behind, like I am right on track with where I need to be. And there are other women out there that can sort of reflect back to me just how okay I truly am.
Yeah, I like that. Like what you're saying is they'll identify with it. They'll be like, oh, that's my story. Or if they can do it, so can I. Right.
Absolutely. And so that format of the podcast, we've essentially taken into this conference that we've been producing. So we had our first event in San Francisco in March, our next one coming up in New York, May 13th. And what's really exciting about the conference is we've basically taken these same kinds of conversations and just put them on stage in a really lovely sort of closed door environment. And so the women on stage aren't telling you what to do with your capital. They're telling you what they did
I
with
love
their
that.
capital, right? I will have been talking about how to buy cash flowing businesses because she's been doing that for 20 years and how easy it is for people to start, right? Or how easy it is to start to think about diversification around angel and venture capital investing, understanding real stories around risk and timing and sort of how to context things. And so the conference is sort of like the podcast, but taken in real life and in a closed door where women can step away from the titles of their success on LinkedIn and step into their shared and lived experiences where we can then sort of learn from each other.
I love that. And what is the name of the conference?
It's called the Wealth Catalyst Summit.
Love it.
And Catherine, we're planning on taking this around the country. I mean, you certainly have led the charge here on opening up conversations, nationally on how women can think about investing in venture and angel investing. And it's so inspirational. And, we are thinking, what are other markets where women are hungry and want to have these sorts of conversations? Because as you know, it's not just New York and California that's trying to move the needle. There are so many other spaces in this country where giving women the confidence and permission to be bold with their capital, I believe is even more essential to talk about.
Yeah, and things aren't just happening like you just said in New York and LA. There's so much happening. There's a big push of women and entrepreneurs and investors in the Midwest. And so I just love seeing this tremendous groundswell of movement of women really helping each other, thinking about building their wealth, not being afraid to say that. Like, I love your boldness, and I love the boldness of the name of your podcast, Getting Rich Together. I know one of the people that's in our film, Dawn LaFrida, talks about she is just fierce about the fact that she loves money, loves making money. People always
She's
come up to
fabulous. I loved
people come
her
up
in the
after the
movie.
film and go, "Oh my
Right.
God, you said what I want to say." So we shouldn't be afraid to say that because
Yeah.
money allows us to do things for other people and take care of things, and it's a good thing. So the more of it, the more good we can do, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like last year when John and I were planning the conferences, we really thought that, women would be on like a homecoming win, we'd be like, we're on this high. And now it feels like, what we're on a mission now is a lot more around, financial activism, right? It's like if we actually do not have the capital to
Mhm.
invest in the people and businesses and ideas we believe in, if we don't have the money to protect our families, our communities, then we actually are hurting ourselves, right? The economy loses out, we lose out, and we can no longer sort of protect the things that are most important. And so I am really now believing that it is so critical that women are emboldened to be active with their capital because otherwise we will literally lose. And when this great wealth transfer happens, what's going to happen? Women will get scared. They'll pull their money out, or they'll be too afraid to ask their wealth advisors, right, and managers to give them the assets to go put towards things that are important. And then we'll end up losing money in the economy. So it's not just advocating our own personal interest, it's also like for the economy to actually move forward, we need women to invest in innovation and invest with their values.
100%. So that transfer of wealth is, what are those women going to do with it? There's a lot of power in that. That's why what you and I are doing is so important to educate these women about these alternative assets that are impact investing that can also be very lucrative. So it's so important that they get that education and realize not only is it important, but it's also very fun because getting to see what are the new innovations coming down the pike, those 26 that you have invested in, no doubt are really amazing individuals with incredible ideas, right?
Yeah, I mean it's powerful to think of what's at play here. And you mentioned fun, and I think it's so important to double click on fun. I often talk about how much I've enjoyed investing in Broadway, and how fun it is to be a part of culture and to be able to say, like who are the stewards of culture anymore? It used to be back in the day, you'd have the billionaires, right? The Rockefellers, the people
Yeah.
who held lots of capital would steward their wealth into culture and they'd steward their wealth into education and really helping people. And today, our billionaires are not stewarding culture and they're not stewarding education. And so it's really up to us to say, well, if culture is important to us, which it is, and art is important, and these things are important to us,
100%.
then we
I'm
need to do our part to preserve it because there are no new Rockefellers that are doing what they used to do, right?
right. And I do believe it's the arts that influence culture. What is culture going to look like? Who's it going to represent? And so I love that you mentioned Broadway because my wife and I are co-producing a show called Millennials Are Killing Musicals, which is coming to LA on its way to Broadway. Which show did you get behind?
Oh my God. So last year we invested in Cabaret.
Oh my God. That's one of my
Yeah,
favorite shows of all time.
it was so fun. And then we invested in a show called Smash, which just
Oh, that's
opened.
out now, right?
Yeah, it's out
Yes, I've
now.
heard great things about it.
Oh, it is so fun. And I love this idea of like how we can preserve and really amplify culture and art. And, one of our speakers in New York, her name's Hall Rockefeller, and she talks about investing in art, and what it looks like to invest in women artists and how it's been that women artists have been so overlooked
Yes.
for forever, right?
Well,
And so we
Millennials
actually
is
need
written. The show is written, the music's written and produced all by a woman named Nico Juber, and that's one of the reasons we're getting behind it. You're right; women are very underrepresented on Broadway, even though 69% of the tickets are bought by women. So how crazy is that?
horrifying. It's like when we think about how little we get communicated to in our ways, but yet how responsible we are for so much of how money gets spent. It's wild, right? It trickles down to all the financial products and services we get sold to. It's like no one's actually addressing us and saying, well, you're probably sending your kids through college and caring for aging parents at the same time and cooking dinner on a Friday. Like, how can we also support, what's actually happening in someone's life, right? And we are
And you
so
know what?
overlooked in communication.
A woman who is doing what she loves, which is her purpose on the planet, is going to be a happier, smarter, better wife and mother than somebody who gives up their dreams to only be a mom. And, this is the thing that our culture, I think, is dealing with right now. You can do all of those things. Some people are meant to be nannies and take care of children so that another woman has a download to create a business can do that. And that's okay. And so very,
Yeah.
very timely conversation. I think that's a whole nother podcast. I have to have you back
I
about that.
think so too, Catherine. On top of my mind, I'm like, gosh, there's so much to talk about around the dignity of labor, and not all of us are meant to be entrepreneurs. Many shouldn't, like it's really for a
Right.
specific
But the ones
person.
that want to be, that have that download, 100%, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But we over glamorize things, right? And it's like we need to be able to, I like to say, get quiet and listen deeply to the things that really move us in the world. And if
And
we
then
can do
also,
that,
and then one other thing, but based on what you just said, and I'll wrap this up, is that one thing about investing in startups like you've done is that sometimes you don't have to be the one that had the idea or the download or the innovation, but you can invest in someone who does. And that is a legacy in itself, helping another woman that has a purpose and a mission, getting behind that, investing in that. And then what a fun ride to go together, right?
it's
So,
bold and it's
yes,
brave, and we need every person participating in this ecosystem if
we
we're going to
do.
move the needle.
Absolutely. Well, what a pleasure talking to you today. Thanks for what you're doing with Big Delta Capital and everything else. And of course, everybody needs to tune in to Getting Rich Together podcast. Thanks for being a great guest today, Syama. Really great to meet you. And everybody, you can reach Syama you're on LinkedIn.
Certainly am. I'm on LinkedIn.
Want to
You can
spell how
find the
they would
summit.
find you?
Yes, you can find me on LinkedIn at Syama, spelled Syama. There are very few of us out there, so I'm sure I'll pop up. And everyone can sign up for the summit at wealthcatalystsummit.com, and all the new places will be on there and all the fun ways to connect in person.
Wonderful. Thanks for all that you're doing. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. You can, of course, find me as well on LinkedIn, Catherine with a C and Gray with an A. We have several websites. We have the movie website, showherthemoneymovie.com, if you want to see where it's playing or if you want to book it to play to your group. We have sheangelinvestors.com to give resources to help women entrepreneurs. And then, of course, Silicon Valley Women Founders Fund, where we're funding women in technology. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time to tune in. Syama, thank you so much for being here as a guest. And everybody, make it a great week. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.